Well, in the last hour, I brought you the absolutely ridiculous story that prison officers have been told to not call criminals convicts. But I've got an equally daft story for you now, because a police unit that tackles violent crime is apparently changing its name because it was too aggressive. The Viper Squad operates in London. Apparently Viper wasn't a nice enough name. No, it's got connotations, so there we go. It's now going to be called the Proactive Armed Team. Good grief. Joining me now is former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, thank you very much. What on earth is going on?
Well, of course, the Metropolitan Police is, in so many regards, so fluffy in 2023, and this is just another example of it. But, of course, in policing, everything is given an acronym. So the Proactive Armed Team, as it's now going to be known, will be given the acronym PAT.
Oh.
OK? Now, that may be offensive, of course, to people called Patrick or Patricia.
Well, I'm offended.
Should they shoot someone, for example?
Yeah, shot by Pat.
Yeah, and where's it all going to end? You know, I mean, it's opened a can of worms because, of course, the Metropolitan Police have got a special branch. Now, surely that's far too elitist, so they might have to be average branch, mightn't they?
Yeah, bang average branch, yeah.
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 And so it goes on.
I mean, it is just the idea. Who comes up with this? So bear in mind, it's worth just telling people what kind of individual that this Viper unit would be used to dealing with.
Serious armed criminals.
Right.
So isn't Viper a great name for them?
Yeah.
You'd want to be on that team. And when people, colleagues, you know, you meet them, say, you know, what are you doing these days? What team are you on? Where are you working?
Yeah.
I'm on Viper. And everybody knows you're dealing with very serious, bad, armed criminals. But no, I'm on the Proactive Armed Team. Oh, right.
But also as well, I don't know, I mean, psychologically, I get that the idea of the kind of people that they're dealing with are probably not put off by any name. But, you know, if they thought that the Viper Squad were after them, it probably is a little bit more fear-inducing than thinking the Proactive Armed Team is there.
You hit on a very, very good point here, because do you know what? Criminals were fearful of certain police stations, OK?
Right.
And they would deliberately not commit crime on a particular patch because they didn't want to go to certain police stations. Likewise, they didn't want to be targeted by certain squads who had reputations for catching people and convicting them. So I think Viper, short, snappy, to the point, is a really good word to be circulating in amongst criminals to strike just a slight note of fear. But now, of course, on this, it's Friday, so I'll be going for a curry tonight, you know, and what I would normally have a pint of Cobra, right?
Oh, yeah.
Other lagers are available.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I'm going to have to say to my friend who runs the Indian restaurant that I think I'll have a pint of limbless reptile beer, please.
Limbless reptile beer, 100%. You can't possibly have a pint of Cobra. No, I mean, it would be a bang out of order, that, actually, and it's offensive and it's an aggressive drink, 100%. But why is this culture now streaming through our police force where, I mean, instead of maybe looking at some pretty lawless areas and violent knife crime and drug crime and all of this stuff, there is any focus whatsoever on whether or not the name for the group of people who go out and sometimes shoot the worst human beings in our society should be changed because it's too aggressive?
Be under no illusion. Tough, violent, determined criminals need tough, bright, intelligent, fearless police officers and detectives to catch them. There is a fluffiness around much of the Metropolitan Police, and there is a sort of neoliberal orthodoxy that occupies a lot of the corridors of power in policing. And this has been borne out in recent decades as so many of these senior police officers have gone to university. And this dates back to 1997, when Tony Blair said education, 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 and certain cops said, we'll have some of that. And off they went, often publicly funded, to get their degrees, went to university, and they came back with their heads full, quite often, of pseudo-intellectual claptrap that really didn't have a place in policing. That's not to say policing has got to be disrespectful. Of course not. Absolutely not. And I'm not saying that policing should be occupied by dinosaurs and outdated thinking. But there is a limit, and sometimes, you know, a sharp, to the point, very, very relevant name is good.
Well, yeah, because what absolutely hasn't changed is the attitudes of the people that they're trying to catch, and in some cases, unfortunately, kill when it comes to, armed shootouts or whatever. And, if you change the attitude of the police or the ethics of the police or the ethos of the police, and those very dangerous, violent individuals who they are trying to catch have exactly the same mentality, well, at what point do those bad people win?
Well, we are very lucky to have some very determined, resolute detectives and police officers who are willing to take up arms, who have considered whether they join the police and will accept that responsibility, and years of investigation should they pull that trigger and take a life. So we should be grateful to those good, decent cops. But I'm afraid in the corridors of power there is this prevailing fluffiness.
But where does that lead, right? Where does that lead? Because some people from certain quarters might be looking at this and going, right, well, that's good, actually, because the police have behaved appallingly before, or we've seen arrests at the coronation, or whatever all this stuff is. By the way, I think they're well within the rights to do that. I'd have happily seen them lift anyone who even, in my opinion anyway, looked as though they were going to ruin that big day. And there was a lot of police bashing that took place after that I thought was bang out of order, but we can leave that there. That's not what you're on to talk about. But where does this play out, then? Do we end up with a police force that is infected with this all nicey-nicey ideology and then just lawless Britain, or what?
Well, we all have to hope that the answer to that question is a fundamental no, because we need resolute, determined, brave, courageous men and women to take on the criminals. Some of these criminals, and let's not beat around the bush, have absolutely no compulsion about pulling a trigger and killing someone or plunging a knife into someone. So we have to have a resolute police service who will stand up to these people, who will gather the evidence, who will smash the doors down, put the handcuffs on and drag them off to custody suites.
Yeah, look, Peter, thank you very much. As ever, Peter Bleksley there is a former Scotland Yard detective speaking, as he always does, such common sense.